I saw her pull into the car park and thought, right, so she'll pop up in a few minutes and just tell me, and she didn't. And I thought that a little unusual. And then I waited a few minutes longer, and then I went downstairs and said, you know, what did they tell you? And she said, well, I think we'll discuss it later.
Yeah, I was just in the kitchen and everything just stopped.
On and off, Jane had had some ill health. You probably would think of them as sort of small niggles that sometimes go with age, sometimes, you know, with your diet or whatever it be. And yeah, she was frequently chatting with the doctors and trying different medication and different arrangements. And it was obviously something of a bolt out of the blue.
In August 2017, Mum was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Everything was just flipped on its head. Like, you know, straight away. Mum had been given, you know, 3 months maximum to live, and yeah, I was just stood in the kitchen and everything just stopped.
Because of the positioning of the tumour and to an extent the size of it, that unfortunately the tumour was not operable. At which point I pretty well broke down, and it was Jane who held my hand.
When we started to get into December, Mum was poorly. She was in the hospital and I went to go and visit her on the Friday. I was on my way up to Edinburgh to see some friends for the weekend, and I said, oh, you know, I don't have to go, and she was like, no, don't be silly, you haven't seen your friends in ages, like, go, you need to live your life, you need to, you know, go and have some fun. Came back on the Monday afternoon, got home at probably about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
A lady's voice, is that Mark Byrne? Yes. I'm sorry to have to tell you, your wife has died. And I howled. Just howled and howled. And yeah, that was tough.
My dad and his brother come in and said, Mum's gone. Yeah, and obviously that was difficult for me, because obviously I just said I wouldn't go, but I think it sort of highlights how she was with me, in the sense that she was like, no, go. Don't wait here, but go. So yeah. The charity in Three Bears, the beauty of it now is that it's almost a mythical inception. I've got my story, Joe's got his, Emma will have hers.
The idea came around in a pub. We were all sat around figuring out what we could do to raise money for charity.
And that's where we came up with the idea to run the New York Marathon. We contacted Pancreatic Cancer UK and asked for 10 places to run the New York Marathon. The foundation, to me, actually came about a week or so later. I'd had the Three Bears in my head. Emma was really keen to get involved as well.
The best way to focus our energy was to set up a charity and raise funds to basically fund the fight against pancreatic cancer and conduct as much research as possible into curing the disease.
We signed Dad up to the Great North Run, which was part of the training for the New York Marathons, and it just sort of went from there really, from strength to strength. Mum used to call me Chrissy Bear, and then by the time that I was sort of 10, family friends would, you know, call her Janie Bear and Dad Bernie Bear, and maybe they did call us the Three Bears, but that's why it's called Three Bears Foundation. I guess because we were the Three Bears. Not many people had heard of pancreatic cancer, and he would tell people about the situation with Mum. And
I met Matt Byrne at some business networking in New York, and he stood up and told his story. He was the charity of that group, and I sat there in awe.
And I knew that we were on to something when I got a letter in the post from a friend's grandma who donated £40,000. We won the Purple Star Award. That was the day we gave Pancreatic UK, we gave them a cheque for £112,000. We got our official charity status in 2020. We had 23 people finish marathons for us. We've done the 3 peaks. We've had a number of different events. We're funding a research project to help essentially make chemotherapy potentially more effective in pancreatic cancer patients, which could help save somebody else's mum, wife, sister, husband, anyone, someone's family member in the future. And I think that's why we're here, that's why we do it.
I'm Professor Thomas Hughes, and I'm an academic cancer biologist based at York St John University. Well, the research we're hoping to do is obviously about pancreatic cancer, and what we're really trying to understand is why pancreatic cancers don't do very well after chemotherapy. Why doesn't chemotherapy cure the cancer? And we're hoping to improve that by making them respond better to chemotherapy and therefore increase cure rates.
If I had to describe the Three Bears Foundation in one word, I'd probably say mum, and I think that's just because that's the whole reason that's what motivates me to do it, and that's the reason that I came up with the idea, and that's the reason that I think we're all here for the foundation.